Hi, Mahmoud from the future here. I'm currently editing the video as we speak, and I noticed that the video got much longer than I thought it would be, so I'm going to make this a two-part video. Basically, I'm going to show you the drums and the bass, and then I'm going to show you the rest of the synthesizers as well as the vocals. When you see this is part two. Make sure you stick around for the rest of the synthesizers and the vocals and what I do on my master bus. And thank you so much for watching. That being said, let's move on to the lead synthesizers. Now, I had exported this track stupidly as a stereo track. It should have been a mono track because it's a mono source. Now, Cubase thankfully has this plugin called Mix 6 to 2 that allows you to just turn it basically into a mono track. I didn't want this signal to be a hard left. I wanted a bit more in the center than just hard left. I wanted it at 80, it seems. So I used this to pull it more further in. That's all I did. Same deal with this, except I also cut a little bit of high end because the lead on the right side is an octave higher, and I didn't want it to be too piercing. I'll just play these two together because they're meant to sound together. It's not an octave higher at all times, but there's certain points in the song, I think in the chorus, where it shoots up an octave. I copied this lead onto a new track, I think only during the intro. Yeah, only during the intro. And I distorted it. I sent it through this plugin here, which is ToneForge, the Jason Richardson signature model. And what I did here is I wanted to imitate a guitar, and I thought it worked really well. What I did here is I just pulled this up in what is basically, I think, the default state of the plugin. Engage that. Here's how this sounds. Honestly, it sounds a lot like a guitar to me. It's kind of messed up guitar, but it sounds like a guitar to me. And what I did here is I put an EQ afterwards, cut the low end, cut the high end, and boost a little bit of 2K. Here's how this sounds. Oh, actually, I didn't boost the 2K. This is actually pulling down. This is a dynamic EQ again. I love this function of Pro Q3. It allows you to be, as the name suggests, more dynamic with your EQ choices, and works wonders. It's really nice. I did this on both sides. It's the same exact thing. And I just used that during the intro to beef up the lead. And here's how these four sound together. I think they might be just as loud as the main. Yeah. Now, let's talk about the synth pad. Also, these are also the same exact tones that I show in my synth basics video. This is the synth pad. Here's how this sounds by itself. It has a bit of an org vibe in a way. And what I did here is I really cut out some low end with a very aggressive low cut. pulled down some of the low mids that I thought sounded boxy and in the way of the rest of the mix, boosted a bit of the mids, and cut the high end. Here's how this sounds. Now, you might be thinking, well, it sounded fine before, and I agree with that. The problem is when it comes to the chorus, this eats up a lot of valuable space. It gets in the way of the vocals, it gets in the way of the other synthesizers, and the purpose of this synth pad wasn't to get in the way of those things, obviously. It was to fill out the rest of the space and to give a more airy vibe. On the bus, there's just a low cut on the lead because these synthesizers carry so much energy, it's kind of astounding. And when it builds up, especially during a section where more than one synthesizer is playing at the same time, it just gets crazy. Here it is before, and then I'll engage it. Notice that difference? It's crazy how much energy these carry, even though they're technically in such high registers. It's really astounding. Now, here's a really cool feature of Pro Q3, which is listening to that specific EQ band. This is basically what I'm cutting. Super cool feature. Especially if you're just learning to EQ, this is really, really nice. Super helpful. Now, moving on to what I call the rhythm fake guitars. These I also show in the Making Synth Metal Basics, synthesizer Metal Basics video. And what I do here is, yeah, it's basically taking up the role of what the guitars would do in this song. Now, I thought it sounds cool, and I just did some EQing on this. And I'll engage it. Let me move on to a section where they do a bit more. Maybe here. Here's a cool section. What I'm doing here is just a slight boost at around 100, and here another dynamic EQ to pull down those sounds that I thought were a bit too aggressive in the context. And now I'm going to contradict myself because I like aggressiveness in mixes, but not specifically like this. What I did is I did want it to be more aggressive, but I wanted to distort it. And again, I used that same exact distortion plugin. But first I did some EQing. Sounds like this. Now you might be asking yourself, dude, you pulled down this frequency on the other track, which is a copy, but now you're boosting it, and you're boosting it by quite a bit. What's the deal? The reason is I wanted to boost this frequency into the ToneForge plugin to have that distort first. Now, here's how this sounds with the distortion on. I love this. It sounds so meaty, so grindy and dirty, and it works so well in the context of the song. You might not even realize it's there. I love it though. And what I did afterwards is I EQ'd it some more. Here's what I did. And the last plugin in this chain is a wah that I engage here. Again, during that build-up section that I showed you on the drums, here's what this does. Man, this sounds beyond aggressive. And again, this is actually imitating the guitars on the original track. I wanted to see if I can get it sounding somewhat close to what Corey and Matt are doing on the Trivium original. And during that section they're playing these slides and slowly opening a wah pedal during that build-up where it's all like super heavy tension. This is that. Now let's listen to these two synthesizers together. I'll play a section where it's just one alone and the other one comes in. Pretty gnarly. Now on the bus I didn't do anything at all, so we can just move on straight away from there. Let's look at this point. Let's take a look at the master bus. Now the master, I'm not good at mastering, I'll be upfront with you, but I do think some master bus stuff going on helps the mix a lot. And at this point is probably where I would start engaging things on the master bus to give everything more color and see where I can push it. And the first thing I often engage is this plugin by Slate Digital, and it's a compressor. I think it's modeled after a Focusrite Red compressor kind of thing. And if someone knows better about that, please leave it in the comments, because I'm really bad with that kind of stuff. And here's how this sounds. It's super subtle. I mean, the needle is barely moving, if at all. And let's see if I can get like a section even to move it. I think maybe during the breakdown. Yeah, I mean, it's super subtle. It's just there for coloration. Basically, I'm not even compressing that much with it. If it's compressing, you won't be able to see it on the needle. What it does do, it's adding a bit of saturation over here. And it just feels like it glues things together for me. I don't know if you can hear it over whatever you're listening to this on, but this feels really nice to me when I engage it, and it feels kind of wrong when I take it out again. All right, now having said that, let's move on to the vocals, because these have been really challenging and very interesting at the same time. I recorded the vocals, I edited and I tuned them the way you're supposed to. And this is the first track. Let me disengage the effects. This is the main vocal track. A chasm grows with a cavity of serpentine teeth. Hunger pain strike. Now you'll notice there's a delay, like a delay that comes in before the actual phrase starts. And the way you do this is you take whatever you've recorded and you reverse it. You apply the delay and make sure that you like the sound of it. You print that and then you reverse it back. And that's what you'd end up with. It's very easy to do. Sounds more complicated than it is, but give it a try. It's so cool when you can use it in a place that doesn't feel out of place. It's really nice. That being said, here's the EQ. Here's what I did on it. I've opened up my eyes, seen the world for what it's worth. That's that. I added a whole bunch of things on here. Now, I'll engage this and I'll turn on module by module. Here's the first module, which is Air EQ. Just added some top end. Tears rain down from the sky. I have recorded these vocals all using this very mic right here. And I love this mic. It's very versatile. And it works with my voice. It might not work with your voice as well. It might work even better, who knows? But I always need to push more high end with it. And here's that, the EQ afterwards. They'll blow it all to bits to prove who's God wields all. I pushed some low end here at around, what is that, 240? Well, low mid, I guess, just to give it more girth. 2.5 decibels at around 3.7. It's a shelf boost, so everything above this frequency gets boosted by 2.5 decibels, and a little bit more girth at around 1.5. Well, not girth, but like mid bite at this here. I'll engage, I'll disengage it and I'll engage it again. All the power, fire rains down from the sky. That's a very powerful EQ. I love it. And here's the distressor imitation by Steven Slate plugins. 2-to-1 ratio. Input at just below halfway point. 4 on the attack, which is like a medium-ish kind of setting. Very fast release, and just engaging the output until it was about unity gain. Eyes, see the world for what it's worth. Very subtle. Tears rain down from the sky. And the last move I did on this virtual mix rack is the Revival, which is an exciter. It's a harmonic exciter. I'm not sure if it's a parallel kind of thing or just directly on it. You can easily overdo it with this plugin. I usually just like push a little here and push a little there. It adds a bit of a shimmer kind of thing, as they say here, meaning like a presence and something in the top end and girth and thickness in the low end. Here's how this sounds. They'll blow it all to bits to prove who's God wields all the power. That's that. And last but not least, Decapitator. What an awesome plugin. This I use on vocals all of the time, basically. Even if it's just blended in a little bit, it's such a nice saturation plugin. I love it. Eyes, see the world for what it's worth. Tears rain down from the sky. You can be subtle with it. You can You can mess the vocals up really easily if you want, and it's still such a nice sounding thing when you do go crazy with it. That being said, I copied these settings basically on all the other tracks, and what I did do though on the other tracks, I might have cut out more high end, especially on the background tracks, so they're not in the front too much. So let's take a look at that. Might have been on this EQ here. Yeah, I cut out high end as opposed to pushing it. So the left and right tracks aren't as heavy in your face as the main track. I want the main track to shine. The others are just there for support. And these two tracks together with the main track sound like this.
A chasm grows with a cavity of serpentine teeth.
You might notice I'm a fan of vocal sax, meaning you have to actually sing it 3 times. You can't just copy it over to give it this wide stereo image feeling. This is very powerful, especially in choruses, where you want a big chorus sounds like that.
I've opened up my eyes, seen the world for what it's worth. Tears rain down from the sky.
I love doing this in modern productions. I think it adds a whole lot of girth to the voice. And that's that. And one last thing that I did is I took this main track during the verses and I copied it over and I pitched it down by 1 octave. This is something that is widely used in modern hip-hop music, I believe. At least it's something that was taught to me by a friend that knows a whole lot more about it than I do. This EQ right here, I'll show you why this is very, very important in a minute. Here's what I did to it. I basically used the same settings as I did on the background vocals left and right. And here's how this sounds by itself. Sounds kind of ridiculous by itself, but it's just an effect that is heavily used in this style of music, so I did it. Now, let me show you what happens when I pop in the other main vocals together with this one. Just pay attention to the S sounds.
A chasm grows with a cavity of serpentine teeth.
This is a big issue. I sent this to my friend and he checked it out. He liked the cover and he was like, dude, why is it sounding like you have a lisp? And I went and checked it down and I freaked out. I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? What am I supposed to do? I really like this track and I want to use it. How can I fix this? So I immediately went crying to Phil, dude, what do I do? And his first instinct immediately was just cut the high end. I'm like, really, that easy? Yeah, that easy. Literally all I did was engage this plugin and I automated it so it doesn't work all the time because there's certain sections of the song where this track actually has actual singing and not like this down-pitched octave thing. So this immediately fixed the issue. So if you ever have a low-pitched octave thing going on, cut the high end and you're good. Here's how this sounds.
A chasm grows with a cavity of serpentine teeth.
And this makes a lot of sense because with this down pitch thing, you're not looking for the high end. You don't care about that. You want that low end, girthy, kind of Cookie Monster kind of sounding thing. Makes a lot of sense. That being said, here's a section of the vocals where it's actual an octave lower vocal here.
I've opened up my eyes, seen the world for what it's worth. Tears rain down from the sky.
I have to admit, I am not comfortable in that register. I don't like singing in that register, but I like putting in a lower octave to the main vocal. And here's how it sounds together.
I've opened up my eyes, seen the world for what it's worth. Tears rain down from the sky.
On the bass, again, just an instance of decapitator, just to glue things a bit together.
They'll burn all to bits.
Nothing crazy there. That is basically it. Final thing, there's an effects channel in parallel. On this channel, I have an instance of Echo Boy with a dual delay, left and right, fourth and a half. Right in series with that, a little plate with 2.5 seconds of decay and a low cut at like around 100 hertz. EQing afterwards to get out the low end. And a limiter just in case things get crazy. And here's how that sounds. And this track I just blend in to thicken up the main vocals. Let's check out the harmony. Here's the main bass. Same exact thing as on these two tracks. I keep calling those background tracks, but they're actually main tracks, but they're lower in volume on the left and right. The harmony tracks are the same exact thing as these two. I forgot to show the de-esser. The de-esser is literally just cutting out harsh frequencies when S's or other plosives come in. Let me show you that here. As you can see, it's engaging when it goes open up my eyes, seen. It's very important. I like it a lot on background tracks such as this one because you don't want any S's from the background tracks. It's unnecessary. You already have it in the main track and that should be up front. If you have too many of those S sounds accumulating over a whole session, it just gets too much and too crazy. That being said, moving on to the bus of the harmony tracks, again, just decapitator and another de-esser just for good measure in case it gets out of hand. Here's how the harmony bus sounds together with the main vocals.
I've opened up my eyes, seen the world for what it's worth. Tears rain down from the sky. They'll burn.
You get the idea. Let's move on to the screamed tracks. Here, basically same chain. I think it's the same exact chain. Yeah, I cut out some more of the boxiness because screaming tends to be very boxy. Let me disengage everything and just turn on the EQ. You might be thinking it sounds a bit thin, and you would be right, but you get why in a second. Again, this same chain, I didn't change anything about it. Immediately fuller and more upfront, and more in your face, and more aggressive. Everything is there. And here, de-esser on the main track. I'm not sure it's doing all that much, but in case I did go crazy with an S, it's there. And at the end, it decapitator, you get the idea. I copied all of the settings onto the other tracks. I'm just gonna engage them quickly. And same thing here. I love vocal stacks. And if we go to this section right here, you'll hear what's happening.
Why are the cattle through the slaughter amidst gasoline? Pump us through the machines whilst to...
Right. That's the scream vocals, the main track. Now, here's a lo-fi and kind of distorted track. The main gist of it is the same exact thing as on the other tracks, except I added this Toneforge plugin for distortion, and I added this EQ phone kind of filter to give it this lo-fi effect. Here's how this sounds.
To cleanse the world's disease, we are the ammunition that will cause all.
I really love this effect. It's really cool.
Whilst to cleanse the world's disease, we are the...
Also, on this specific section, I did the reverse delay thing again. I think it works really well in this section. And that's the vocals mainly. What I added here is ad-libs. On this bus, I kind of went crazy. It's kind of what you're supposed to do in this style of music. I added a phaser, decapitator, echo boy, like another delay, and a little plate in the reverb, and EQ'd the living hell out of it. I cut out a lot of high end, a lot of low end. And the reason I did that is because I wanted them to sit in the background of the whole thing. This is not something that I wanted in the foreground. Here's how this sounds. On the tracks themselves, I have the same settings. Here's how this sounds. It's just there to fill out the space that other stuff isn't taking up. And during the pre-chorus of the song, here's what I did. You hear the screaming mainly, but what I did first, actually, before I recorded the screaming, was recording whispers. And here's how that sounds. Sounds kind of gnarly. I like it. And I think this is mainly it. I'm not sure. This is another harmony thing. Same thing during the build-up section here.
Pump us through your machines whilst to cleanse the world's disease. We are the ammunition that will cause our life to cease.
And that's that. One final thing I did was a vocal glitch effect. Let me engage the plugins here. Again, same chain, except I added this little altar boy and I automated it. Again, thanks to my friend Phil for showing me this trick. It's really cool. Here's how this sounds. I basically just took the vocal, cut it up, placed it somewhere randomly, and just automated the living shit out of this plugin. Here's how it sounds. And that's the mix for the song. Actually, one last thing I forgot. On the master bus, I wasn't quite done. Let's listen to the song and I'll engage what I did on the master bus just to show you what happens. Now you may have noticed the tremendous difference right there. And The first thing I did was an EQ, high shelf at 7.5, another boost at a mid boost at around 2K, a boost of 1.15, and a low end boost. Let me engage just the EQ by itself. Now this will make a huge difference in a chorus. For example, here. Without the EQ, it sounds lifeless. It's crazy. Now, again, Revival. Love this plugin. Just more high end. And the FG Bomber, I feel like it gives me some intensity and drive and like some pumping, which I really enjoy. It works for this song. I loved it, so I kept it. And final step was Pro MB, just to tame the out of control stuff, the low end and the high end, just to tame that a little bit when it gets too crazy. And that was it. Thank you so much for watching. Just a few things before I end this video. Keep in mind that mixing just as much as any process during the whole music making thing is art, first and foremost. So the EQ moves I made or any other decisions that I happened to make during the mixing process of this song are just what I liked. It's not right, it's not wrong, it's just what it is. It's just my personal preference, and that's what you should be aiming for at the end of the day. Of course, there are things that maybe don't sound great, but if you like that and it works in the context of the song, that might be the right move. So don't let anyone tell you that there's a right or wrong thing to do with anything, as long as you're happy with what the outcome is. If someone else happened to mix that specific song, it might have sounded completely different. It might have sounded the same, who knows? But what I'm trying to say is it's a creative thing and you should treat it as such. So be creative and be open-minded. Don't be afraid to make crazy moves with whatever's happening in the song. If something needs a 50 decibel boost, then that's what it needs, and you shouldn't be afraid to do that. And I hope my breakdown of the song maybe inspires you to do something in that vein. And in the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.